Mia's life was simple. In fact, even the word simple felt too glamorous to describe it. She lived in a small town in New Jersey, spending most of her days behind the register at the local grocery store. Every morning was the same routine, the same mechanical smile, the same monotonous welcome and have a nice day. Her biggest thrill was trying new chocolate bars before anyone else or binge watching a series on Netflix every Friday night. Mia didn't mind the predictability, at least not until she saw her ex-boyfriend Aaron with his new girlfriend Sophie. One afternoon, while scanning customers at her register, Mia heard a familiar laugh, a laugh that once made her heart flutter, but now just made her stomach turn. She looked up, and there they were. Aaron had his arm wrapped around Sophie's tiny waist, and the look in both of their eyes screamed, "How pitiful her life is." When they reached her in line, Aaron flashed a fake surprise smile. "Wow, Mia, still here? Living the dream, huh?" he said, dripping with sarcasm. Sophie clung to Aaron and tilted her head with exaggerated pity. "Ah, poor thing. So, is there someone new in your life? Or are you still stuck on Aaron?" Mia felt the heat rise to her cheeks as the surrounding customers watched with mild curiosity. Fighting to maintain her dignity, she forced a smile. "Don't worry about me. I'm doing just fine. And yes, there is someone in my life. Someone pretty special." Aaron's grin widened as he and Sophie exchanged smug glances. Sophie raised an eyebrow, lips pursed in mock curiosity. "Really? Who's the lucky guy?" For a split second, panic flickered in Mia's chest. She didn't have a name. Yet. Customers were starting to grow impatient, so she blurted out, "You'll meet him soon enough," and quickly finished ringing up their items. As they walked away with skeptical smirks, Mia tried to breathe, but her pride felt crushed. That night, curled up on her couch with the TV buzzing in the background, Mia stared blankly at the screen. Her heart felt heavy. She pulled out her phone and mindlessly scrolled through social media. While everyone else seemed to be thriving, she felt trapped in her tiny life. Then she saw it, Aaron's latest photo with Sophie. That was it. Mia took a deep breath and opened her browser. Her fingers trembled slightly as she typed, "Rent a boyfriend, fast and reliable." Search results flooded the screen. She hesitated. Was she really about to do this? But the memory of their mocking faces was all the motivation she needed. Pride was expensive, and Mia was ready to pay the price. With a mix of embarrassment, adrenaline, and determination, she began browsing through profiles. In the stillness of the night, she had no idea she was about to make a decision that would change everything. All she knew was this. She was done being the girl people looked down on. She was taking her story back. She clicked through pictures more carefully now, and that's when she saw him. Julian. There was something mysterious about his profile that stopped her in her tracks. Maybe he's the one who'll wipe that smug grin off Aaron's face. As her heart pounded, Mia silenced the voice in her head asking, "Are you seriously doing this?" She wasn't aware of it yet, but her fate was just a few clicks away. Mia lay in bed, the only light in the room coming from her phone. Her eyelids were heavy, but the fire inside her kept her wide awake. It was past midnight, and she was still scrolling, browsing through flashing photos online. Then suddenly her finger stopped. Julian. The name popped up in the center of the screen, catching her attention like it had been waiting just for her. She opened the profile and stared for a few seconds. The first photo was of a tall man in a sleek black suit, dark hair neatly styled. It was professionally taken, perfectly lit. This wasn't your average fake boyfriend stock photo. The rest of the photos matched the vibe. Sharp, polished, almost CEO-like. His hair was combed to precision. His wrist carried what looked like a luxury watch. His shirt collar crisp. His tie elegant. Mia raised an eyebrow. "Why would a guy like this even be doing something like this?" she muttered. She scrolled down to the profile description. Julian. Professional companion for private events. Discretion guaranteed. Prioritizing elegance, ease, and authenticity. No gimmicks, just grace. Rate, $100. 100? Mia narrowed her eyes. That couldn't be right. This guy works for $100? She leaned in, double checking. but the number was still there. Clear, bold, suspiciously low. A warning bell went off in her head. Too good to be true. She kept browsing the profile, reading through the reviews. All were glowing, yet vague. No names, no specifics. Just high praise for Julian's impeccable companionship. Mia hesitated, her heart torn between curiosity and caution. Mia's life was simple. In fact, even the word simple felt too glamorous to describe it. She lived in a small town in New Jersey, spending most of her days behind the register at the local grocery store. Every morning was the same routine, the same mechanical smile, the same monotonous welcome and have a nice day. Her biggest thrill was trying new chocolate bars before anyone else or binge watching a series on Netflix every Friday night. Mia didn't mind the predictability, at least not until she saw her ex-boyfriend Aaron with his new girlfriend Sophie. One afternoon, while scanning customers at her register, Mia heard a familiar laugh. A laugh that once made her heart flutter, but now just made her stomach turn. She looked up, and there they were. Aaron had his arm wrapped around Sophie's tiny waist, and the look in both of their eyes screamed, "How pitiful her life is." When they reached her in line, Aaron flashed a fake surprise smile. "Wow, Mia, still here. Living the dream, huh?" he said, dripping with sarcasm. Sophie clung to Aaron and tilted her head with exaggerated pity. "Aw, poor thing. So, is there someone new in your life? Or are you still stuck on Aaron?" Mia felt the heat rise to her cheeks as the surrounding customers watched with mild curiosity. Fighting to maintain her dignity, she forced a smile. "Don't worry about me. I'm doing just fine. And yes, there is someone in my life. Someone pretty special." Aaron's grin widened as he and Sophie exchanged smug glances. Sophie raised an eyebrow, lips pursed in mock curiosity. "Really? Who's the lucky guy?" For a split second, panic flickered in Mia's chest. She didn't have a name. Yet. Customers were starting to grow impatient, so she blurted out, "You'll meet him soon enough," and quickly finished ringing up their items. As they walked away with skeptical smirks, Mia tried to breathe, but her pride felt crushed. That night, curled up on her couch with the TV buzzing in the background, Mia stared blankly at the screen. Her heart felt heavy. She pulled out her phone and mindlessly scrolled through social media. While everyone else seemed to be thriving, she felt trapped in her tiny life. Then she saw it. Aaron's latest photo with Sophie. That was it. Mia took a deep breath and opened her browser. Her fingers trembled slightly as she typed, "Rent a boyfriend, fast and reliable." Search results flooded the screen. She hesitated. Was she really about to do this? But the memory of their mocking faces was all the motivation she needed. Pride was expensive, and Mia was ready to pay the price. With a mix of embarrassment, adrenaline, and determination, she began browsing through profiles. In the stillness of the night, she had no idea she was about to make a decision that would change everything. All she knew was this. She was done being the girl people looked down on. She was taking her story back. She clicked through pictures more carefully now, and that's when she saw him. Julian. There was something mysterious about his profile that stopped her in her tracks. Maybe he's the one who'll wipe that smug grin off Aaron's face. As her heart pounded, Mia silenced the voice in her head asking, "Are you seriously doing this?" She wasn't aware of it yet, but her fate was just a few clicks away. Mia lay in bed, the only light in the room coming from her phone. Her eyelids were heavy, but the fire inside her kept her wide awake. It was past midnight, and she was still scrolling, browsing through flashing photos online. Then suddenly her finger stopped. Julian. The name popped up in the center of the screen, catching her attention like it had been waiting just for her. She opened the profile and stared for a few seconds. The first photo was of a tall man in a sleek black suit, dark hair neatly styled. It was professionally taken, perfectly lit. This wasn't your average fake boyfriend stock photo. The rest of the photos matched the vibe. Sharp, polished, almost CEO-like. His hair was combed to precision, his wrist carried what looked like a luxury watch, his shirt collar crisp, his tie elegant. Mia raised an eyebrow. Why would a guy like this even be doing something like this? She muttered. She scrolled down to the profile description. Julian. Professional companion for private events, discretion guaranteed. Prioritizing elegance, ease, and authenticity. No gimmicks, just grace. Rate, $100? 100? Mia narrowed her eyes. That couldn't be right. This guy works for $100? She leaned in, double-checking. But the number was still there, clear, bold, suspiciously low. A warning bell went off in her head. Too good to be true. She kept browsing the profile, reading through the reviews. All were glowing, yet vague. No names, no specifics, just high praise for Julian's impeccable companionship. Mia hesitated, her heart torn between curiosity and caution. Mia wrapped her fingers around her cup, thoughtful. "Can I ask why you do this?" Julian answered with a soft, enigmatic smile. "We all need an escape sometimes, Mia. This is mine." That only made her more curious. She looked into his eyes and felt something strange, something that resembled trust. He was mysterious, professional, maybe even dangerous, but undeniably magnetic. Mia reminded herself, no matter how convincing this was, no matter how perfect he seemed, her heart was off limits. This was fake. This man, flawless as he appeared, was still just $100 boyfriend. But what Mia didn't realize yet was this. Some things cost more than you expect. Mia took another sip from her cup, shifting slightly under Julian's sharp yet calm gaze. Things were getting serious now. Every detail had to be carefully planned. To keep this fake relationship from spiraling out of control, she began outlining the scenario she'd crafted in her mind, step by step. First, let's lock in our backstory. We met exactly 2 months ago in Central Park. Julian gave a slight nod, showing he was paying close attention. Got it. Central Park. And we met. How? Was it like you said before? Me walking my dog? Yeah, Mia confirmed. You dropped the leash. I helped you pick it up. That's our meet cute. Simple, accidental, believable. Julian smiled and nodded again. Understood. Go on. Mia felt herself relax a little. Julian's composed demeanor made the planning easier. Our first date was at a cafe near the park. Turns out we both love coffee. That way we'll have a shared interest if people ask. I like that detail, Julian said with a faint smile. So what do I do for work? You're a freelance consultant. You work with tech companies, sometimes finance. That explains why you travel a lot and why we're not constantly seen together. Keeps things mysterious but realistic. Julian tilted his head in approval. Makes sense. And when we run into your ex, Aaron, and his new girlfriend, how should I act? Warm, cold. Mia pictured Aaron's smug face and frown. Stay calm but distant, strong, serious, professional. We want you to come off as confident, someone who puts Aaron in his place just by existing. But please don't overdo it. Julian gave her a slight nod, a subtle smile tugging at the corner of his lips. I won't. Promise. Mia leaned in, her tone firm and eyes locked on his. This is important, Julian. That event means a lot to me. If anything happens, any drama, tension, you let me handle it. No improvising, no surprises. Every move we make needs to be pre-discussed. Got it? Julian held her gaze, his expression serious. He waited a beat, then said, I understand, Mia. Nothing will happen that you're not in control of. You can count on me. Mia exhaled and leaned back, a small wave of relief washing over her. Julian's steady presence was oddly reassuring, but deep down, a voice still whispered, Is this guy really as simple as he seems? After a pause, she continued, Let's add a few little details. You're into classic films, but you hate action movies. That's important. Aaron's the exact opposite. It makes us look more compatible. Nice touch, Julian said, tapping his fingers on the table like he was mentally taking notes. Anything else I should know? My favorite coffee is a latte. My favorite color is blue. Little things, but useful if someone starts asking questions. Julian gave a soft smile and a respectful nod. Good, simple and effective. I'll add one more layer. In case anything goes wrong, we should have a safe word. Something you can say so I know to step in or back off. Mia raised her eyebrows, surprised, but it made sense. Okay. What word? Julian thought for a moment, then smiled. Hazelnut. It's simple, casual, easy to slip in. Hazelnut, Mia repeated with a smile. Yeah, that could work. The plan was coming together. Mia leaned back and looked at Julian. His professionalism and calm were impressive. For a brief second, she wondered what his real life was like, why this role came so naturally to him. Maybe his life was far more complicated than he let on. Despite the lingering doubts, Mia felt confident about the plan. Everything was structured, predictable, and that made her feel safe. Now all that was left was to wait for the big day. As they stood up from the table, Julian adjusted his jacket and offered his hand with polite confidence. See you soon, Mia. Your plan is solid. It'll be a pleasure working with you. Mia shook his hand and felt her heart beat a little faster. See you, Julian. Let's hope it all goes as planned. Julian's smile deepened, his eyes steady and unreadable. Don't worry, it's going to go even better than you think. Mia's heart was pounding as if it might burst out of her chest. It was Saturday night, the grocery store's annual party, and this year it was being held in a small, tastefully decorated event hall. Soft lighting, minimal but elegant decor, and casually dressed coworkers chatting comfortably. Mia walked in with her arm linked through Julian's. He looked like a movie star. Black tailored suit, slate gray shirt, and a perfectly tied slim tie. As they passed, she could feel eyes on them. Whispered voices floated through the air. Who's the guy with Mia? He's definitely loaded. Damn, how did she land someone like that? Instinctively, Mia held Julian's arm a little tighter. Julian, on the other hand, seemed unfazed by the attention. If anything, he looked completely at ease, calm, confident, in control. At the far end of the room, Mia spotted Aaron and Sophie. Aaron's smug expression visibly faltered the moment he saw them. That alone made Mia smile. Just that one look on his face made everything worth it. You all right? Julian leaned in and whispered close to her ear. Yeah, she replied softly. Just nervous. Julian gave her a reassuring smile and gently tightened his grip on her arm. Don't worry, I've got you. A few coworkers quickly approached, curiosity written all over their faces. They inspected Julian with interest, but he handled it effortlessly, offering firm handshakes, polite introductions, and even slipping in a few well-timed jokes. It didn't take long for him to charm everyone in the room. Mia watched in awe. He wasn't just playing the part, he was the part. Like he'd been doing this for years. At one point, Mia stepped away to get a drink from the bar. That's when Aaron showed up beside her, his tone dripping with jealousy. Not bad, Mia. So which casting agency sent this guy? Mia held her ground, trying to stay calm, even as irritation bubbled beneath the surface. Funny, Aaron. Julian's a real person. Unlike you, he doesn't fake who he is. Aaron raised his eyebrows, clearly thrown off. He's a bit too perfect, don't you think? Seems a little suspicious. Before Mia could reply, Julian appeared beside them, his face composed but authoritative. He spoke to Aaron in a calm, cool voice. Julian, Mia's boyfriend, is there a problem? Aaron looked momentarily stunned, then scrambled to recover with a forced smile. Nope, no problem. We were just chatting. Julian gave a small, polite smile, but Mia could sense something firm beneath it. Good, I need to get back to Mia. As Aaron awkwardly backed off, Mia turned to Julian, whispering with a hint of disapproval. What was that? That was a little much. Julian looked at her, his smile still faintly there, but his voice had taken on a more serious edge. I wasn't going to let him talk to you like that. Mia looked at him, feeling a rush of confusion. Julian had gone beyond the script. This wasn't just role-playing anymore. It was something else, and she wasn't sure how to feel about that. As the night went on, Julian became the center of attention. Even Mia's bosses made their way over to shake his hand and ask him questions. People were drawn to him like he had his own gravitational pull. Mia stood nearby, watching and feeling increasingly uneasy. Julian wasn't just convincing, he was too real. So real she almost believed it herself. She stepped outside for a breath of fresh air, only to find Julian right behind her. There was concern in her eyes. Julian, I told you, No excessive improvising. I feel like I'm losing control of everything. Julian looked at her calmly, his voice soft but firm. Mia, trust me, nothing here is out of control. She met his eyes and felt a flicker of something deep inside her, something like a warning bell. This man was far more complex than she'd realized. Again, she found herself wondering, why does someone like him do this? Pushing away her doubts, she gave a small nod, and together they stepped back inside. But even as the crowd welcomed them again, one question echoed in Mia's mind. Who is this man really? Mia returned inside and sat at a small table, hoping to calm her nerves. A few steps away, Julian was engaged in a lively conversation with the store managers, looking completely in his element. As she watched him, a thought crept into her mind. This man doesn't belong here. He looked like he should be in a boardroom leading a major corporate meeting, not standing under string lights in a modest party hall. Just then, Aaron and Sophie approached, flanking her like a storm cloud rolling in. Aaron's smirk was laced with alcohol and irritation. Mia, you seriously don't know who this guy is, do you? Mia sighed, trying to keep her cool. What's that supposed to mean, Aaron? Jealous much? Aaron gave a fake laugh. Sophie clung to his arm, giggling softly. Oh, come on, Mia. Where'd you find this guy? Craigslist? When does your rental contract expire? A few nearby guests chuckled at the remark. Mia's cheeks burned. She opened her mouth to respond, but a calm, firm voice cut through the noise. You're talking about rental contracts, Aaron. Interesting. Says a lot about how you view relationships. Julian had appeared beside her, his posture tall, his gaze locked onto Aaron with ice-cold clarity. The surrounding laughter died instantly. Aaron blinked, caught off guard. He tried to play it off, but his voice wavered slightly. Relax, man. It was just a joke. Julian offered a small smile, but the steel in his eyes didn't budge. A joke? Sounded a lot more like an insult to me, especially coming from someone who dumped Mia and now thinks her pain is punchline material. Honestly, it's less funny and more pathetic. Aaron's face flushed crimson. People nearby had started whispering. Julian remained composed, his tone steady and precise. A bit of advice, Aaron. Let go of the past. If you don't, the future won't be kind to you. Aaron opened his mouth, but no words came out. Sophie, visibly uncomfortable, tugged at his arm and led him away. Mia stared at Julian, a mix of shock and awe in her expression. All around them, co-workers whispered and exchanged glances, some clearly impressed. Julian leaned down and whispered, Are you okay? Mia nodded, but inside something felt off. Julian had played the role perfectly, but each passing minute, she felt more and more like she wasn't in charge anymore. He wasn't just a pretend boyfriend, he was becoming something else. Something real. You didn't think that was a little much? She asked quietly. Julian met her eyes, his expression serious. Mia, I won't let anyone hurt you. I'm here for you tonight. Don't forget that. His words settled over her like a warm but confusing blanket. There was no performance in his voice, no act in his expression. It was all genuine, or at least it felt that way. Her heart raced. This wasn't just pretend anymore, and she didn't like how much it mattered. The music resumed, and the room slowly drifted back to its usual buzz of laughter and chatter. Julian mingled effortlessly, flashing that signature half-smile, charming everyone within 10 feet. But Mia, she felt overwhelmed. She slipped out to the balcony for some air. The chill calmed her, slightly. One thought echoed in her mind. Why does he feel so real? This fake relationship had taken on a life of its own. Julian's presence, his words, his protection, they stirred emotions Mia hadn't expected. She gripped the balcony railing and took a deep breath. I have to get control back, before it's too late. As the party wound down, the room grew quieter. Groups of co-workers began saying their goodbyes, laughter fading into tired smiles and casual waves. But for Mia, the night felt far from over. These past few hours with Julian had blurred the line between what was real and what was pretend. Julian remained perfectly composed, charming everyone he spoke to, offering a kind smile here and there, and occasionally checking on Mia with a gentle hand on her shoulder and a soft, "You okay?" whispered just for her. And every time he did, Mia's heart seemed to skip a beat. A man who was supposed to be fake felt more real than anyone she'd ever known. As they made their way toward the exit, Julian helped her with her coat. Then just outside the door, in a quiet moment where no one else was around, he stopped suddenly. "Mia," he said softly, "there's something I should have given you earlier." Mia turned to him. "What is it?" Julian pulled a small white card from the inside pocket of his suit. It was blank except for one handwritten word on the back. Hazelnut. "I want you to keep this," he said. "If anything ever feels wrong, if you feel unsafe, unsure, or like you can't trust someone, just say this word. Doesn't matter where we are or what I'm doing, I'll step in." Mia blinked, caught off guard. A strange warmth filled her chest. "Is this a joke?" she asked, half laughing, half nervous. Julian shook his head slowly, his face serious. "Number, it's a safety code. For you. For any moment when this stops feeling like an act." Mia was silent. She looked down at the card, turning it over in her fingers. Hazelnut. Such a simple word. Yet somehow it felt like a fortress. "Why are you doing this?" she asked in a whisper. "Wasn't this just a job?" Julian didn't look away. He didn't smile. His voice remained steady. "Every job involves people, and sometimes people step outside the roles they were given. This is one of those times." Mia couldn't find an answer. Something was stirring in her. Something strange. Unexpected. That card wasn't just a precaution. It felt like a symbol, a quiet acknowledgement that he saw her and chose to protect her anyway. They sat side by side in the back seat of the car, riding in silence. As Mia slipped the card into her wallet, Julian turned slightly and said in a low voice, "I just wanted to make tonight easier for you. I hope it helped." Mia gave a small smile, her voice catching as she replied, "As fake boyfriends go, you were perfect." Julian chuckled softly, but then looked at her with quiet intensity. "I did it all for you, Mia. But now, even I don't know where the performance ends." Mia looked into his eyes, and in them she saw something real, not easily named, but familiar, warm. Julian no longer felt like a hired companion. He was becoming something else, something that mattered. When they reached her home, Julian stepped out and opened her door. He didn't say anything, just looked at her one last time, leaving behind a glance filled with something unspoken. Mia walked inside without a word. Once the door closed behind her, she leaned against it and exhaled deeply. She opened her wallet, pulled out the card again. Hazelnut. That small piece of cardstock felt like the most real thing in her life. She placed it gently on her nightstand, turned off the lights, laid in bed. But she didn't sleep. Julian's smile, his voice, his eyes, they all echoed in her mind. This wasn't supposed to feel real, and yet it did. For the first time, Mia wasn't afraid of losing control. For the first time, she believed that something beyond her control might actually protect her. On Sunday morning, the first thing Mia saw when she opened her eyes was the card on her nightstand. Hazelnut. The thoughts from the night before still clung to her mind. Julian's voice, his gaze, the seriousness in his eyes glowing faintly in the dark. None of it felt like just a performance. But then again, something inside her kept whispering, "This man is not normal." Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. Julian. "Good morning, Mia. If you'd like, we could grab a late coffee today. I imagine last night was a lot to process." Same cafe, 5 p.m. Mia typed no at first, but didn't send it. She deleted the message, took a deep breath, and wrote simply, "Mia." "Sure." At 5 p.m. sharp, she arrived at Parkside Cafe. Julian was already there, of course. This time he wore a navy sweater and a clean, minimal coat. No suit, but still put together. Still, too perfect. "Hi, Mia," he said, rising to greet her. "Got us a table." She smiled politely but remained guarded. Once seated, Julian spoke first. "Last night, when we confronted Aaron, what were you feeling?" Mia thought for a moment. "Mixed. He deserved it, yeah. But your reaction? It was too polished, too controlled. You didn't seem like a guy playing a role. You acted like it was a real threat. Julian nodded, his voice calm. Because Mia, even games need to be played seriously. Otherwise, they lose their power. Mia noted the words, storing them somewhere deep. But the unease inside her grew. She took a sip of her coffee, then asked directly, Julian, I need to ask you something. Honestly, Julian smiled gently. Honesty's always welcome. Ask away. What do you actually do for a living? Julian didn't answer right away. He looked down briefly, fingers laced together. Freelance consulting. Like I said. I know, but what kind? Tech? Finance? Strategy? He looked back up, his smile now slightly evasive. A little bit of everything. Mia frowned. Julian, you remember how I take my coffee. You remembered the names of my coworkers. Last night, you said exactly what would shatter Aaron's ego. That's not coincidence. Julian didn't respond. This isn't just about fake relationships, is it? You do something else. Julian finally met her gaze. I observe people. I read situations. That's what makes me good at certain jobs. What kind of job? She pressed, voice firmer now. He smiled again, but this time his smile looked tired. Sometimes it's better not to put labels on things, but I'm not someone who would ever harm you, Mia. That you do know. She shook her head slowly. Number I don't. That's the problem. Julian leaned in, voice low but sincere. Last night I told you to say hazelnut if you ever felt unsafe, because protection isn't just physical. Sometimes it's emotional, mental. I've tried to be real with you every step of the way. Mia folded her hands in her lap. But I don't know which parts of you are real. There was a pause. The soft jazz playing in the background filled the silence like a question mark. Finally, Julian exhaled. I've worked with certain organizations in the past. Behind-the-scenes roles, understanding systems, human behavior, patterns. Now I pick my own jobs, help who I choose. Your situation was different. Maybe the first time it stopped being just professional. Mia pressed her lips together. What was he? An agent? A strategist? A watcher? Did you research me? Julian didn't hesitate. But I observed. The way you carried yourself, the way you spoke, your expressions. I needed to understand you. It started as a job, but it didn't end that way. Mia sighed. Talking to Julian was like trying to hold on to smoke. There was sound. There was presence, but no clear shape. As they got up to leave, Julian turned to her one last time. Just remember, if you ever truly need help, the word still works, hazelnut. Mia nodded. After he left, she remained at the table for a while, alone. Her coffee had gone lukewarm, but one thought echoed through her mind louder than anything else. Who is this man? In the days that followed, Mia and Julian settled into a strange rhythm. There was still an unspoken boundary between them, but their communication grew unexpectedly intense. Their texts were longer, their conversations more personal, and even their silences began to carry weight. Julian seemed to notice everything about her, when she was tired, when she was cheerful, when her mind was overwhelmed, and each time he adjusted, as if he'd memorized the map of her emotions. This can't just be a role, Mia found herself thinking more and more. But despite the growing closeness, Julian remained a mystery. He never spoke of his family, his past, or the people in his life. And that silence began to knot itself deep inside Mia. One rainy night, as they walked through Central Park under a charcoal sky, Julian stopped to look up. The wet leaves crackled beneath their shoes. Mia turned to him. You never talk about it. Your childhood. Where you grew up. Your family. Julian lowered his head and gave a small, closed smile. A little here, a little there. Never really stayed in one place. Mia frowned. That's vague. Too vague. Who have you worked for? The way you read people, analyzed things. It's not random. Julian kept walking, silent. After a few steps, he turned and faced her. Sometimes sharing the past is just another burden. I don't want to shape your view of me by who I was. I'd rather be judged for who I am. But even who you are feels foggy, Mia said, her voice edged with frustration. Julian nodded. Sometimes finding direction in the fog requires trust. Another vague answer. Another carefully measured sentence. But this time, Mia wasn't ready to let it slide. The next day, while waiting for Julian at a cafe, she took advantage of his delay. From her bag, she pulled out a small notebook, something she had been quietly filling in recent days. She had started recording everything about Julian, his word choices, the way he asked the right questions, his knowledge of people and business structures that went far beyond casual consulting. One entry jumped out at her. During a casual conversation, Julian had mentioned details about the ownership structure of the grocery store Mia worked at. It was something never publicly disclosed, something discussed only in internal meetings. She hadn't caught it at the time, but now it sent a chill down her spine. When Julian finally arrived, Mia quickly closed the notebook and tucked it away. Punctual as ever, she said with a smile she had to force. Habit, Julian replied smoothly. Mia tilted her head. Military habit? Or something from your Wall Street days? Julian chuckled briefly, but gave no real answer. As they chatted, Mia glanced at his hands. There were faint calluses, like those left by holding a pen for hours. But there were no rings, no watch. His outfit was plain, deliberately unremarkable. Yet even when trying not to stand out, Julian somehow did. Let me ask you something, Mia said suddenly. If I disappeared right now, would you find me? Julian's eyes locked onto hers. Yes, he said, but I wouldn't disappear. What does that mean? It means, if I truly care about someone, I don't leave them behind. There was weight in his words, but no matter how deep Mia tried to dig, Julian never gave her more than a glimpse of what lay beneath. Later that night, on the quiet ride home, neither of them spoke for a long time. The silence wasn't awkward, it was meaningful. As the rain traced lines across the car windows, Julian finally broke it. Sometimes you don't want to tell someone everything, because you want them to love who you are now. Not your past, not your resume, just the feeling you give them, without judgment. Mia turned to look at him, studied him, and in that moment, she realized something. No matter what Julian said or didn't say, his eyes always told a different story. Honesty, but whatever his words tried to hide, was still lost in that fog. That night, as Mia walked into her apartment, she carried two things: the discomfort of knowing absolutely nothing about his past, and the undeniable comfort of every moment spent with him. And maybe it was that strange pairing, the peace and uncertainty, that made Julian so dangerously captivating. You know, Julian said one evening, as they walked along the edge of Central Park, let's do something different today. Come with me. I want to show you a place. Mia hesitated at first. She still knew almost nothing about Julian's life. No family, no friends, no home. All she had were those polished profile pictures and a vague label: freelance consultant. And yet, ironically, she already felt swept into his unknown universe. There was no turning back now. Okay, she said softly. Show me. 30 minutes later, they stepped out of a cab in the heart of Manhattan, in front of a sleek high-rise nestled between glittering towers. The building was pure luxury, its smooth facade glowing softly in the dark, guarded by silent doormen in crisp uniforms. You live here? Mia asked as they walked in. Julian nodded without a word. The elevator ride was quiet. As the floor numbers ticked upward toward 20, so did Mia's curiosity and her sense of unease. 20th floor. The elevator stopped. Julian pulled out a magnetic key card and unlocked the door. As they stepped inside, Mia froze. This wasn't an apartment. It was the cover of an architectural magazine: high ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows, sleek, minimalist furniture. Behind a massive white couch, the Manhattan skyline stretched like a painting, glowing in quiet majesty. The kitchen was open, filled with top-of-the-line stainless steel appliances. Everything was immaculate, tasteful, powerful. She stood still, eyes slowly scanning the room, then whispered, You actually live here? Julian took off his jacket and set his watch silently on the side table. Yes, this place is mine, Mia slowly stepped forward, leaning against the wall and taking a deep breath. This wasn't the home of a man who charged $100 to play pretend. It wasn't even the home of a normal consultant. Julian, she said, her voice trembling slightly, this goes way beyond any fake boyfriend gig. This is next level. How can you afford this? Julian leaned back slightly, watching her, then turned toward the kitchen and poured 2 glasses of wine. Mia, he said, handing her a glass, it's a long story. And I want to hear it, she said, locking eyes with him as she took the glass. Julian was quiet for a moment, then walked over to the couch and sat down. There are 2 things you should know, he began. First, I owed a lot to certain people when I was young. They trained me, guided me. But when debts like that go unpaid, they shape you in ways you don't expect. Mia sat down across from him, gripping her wine glass tightly. And the second? Julian turned to the window, gazing out at the city. The second is, I chose my own path, one that was sometimes dark, often silent, but it gave me freedom, control. This apartment is part of that choice. Mia wasn't thirsty anymore. She wanted clarity, plain, honest truth. So what do you do, Julian? No one lives like this off consulting gigs. He looked at her again. This time there was no mystery in his eyes, just tiredness. Sometimes not knowing makes things feel more real. Mia didn't get angry, but something inside her cracked, quietly. Julian seemed to be stepping closer, and yet never actually closing the distance. Then Julian stood, walked to a tall bookshelf, and pulled out a worn black notebook. Its corners were bent, its cover scratched. He handed it to her. This is mine, he said. Some scribbles, some journeys, some past. Maybe it'll give you something. Mia took the notebook, but didn't open it. She held it close to her chest, not sure what to say. Inside her swirled a strange mix of curiosity, fear, and trust. Julian was still a man full of secrets, but now, some of those secrets felt like they belonged to her too. And that night, for the first time, Mia didn't mind surrendering the spotlight in her own story, because no matter what Julian's past held, being by his side was no longer just a game. It was something more, something words couldn't quite capture. When Mia got home from Julian's Manhattan apartment, she glanced at the clock. 2:17 a.m. She wasn't tired. On the contrary, her mind was wide awake, like the gleaming walls of Julian's apartment, bright, orderly, and filled with chaotic emotions underneath. A consultant, but living in a luxury high-rise. A simple man, but with a home designed like a modern art exhibit. A boyfriend, but more like a vault of secrets. She tossed her jacket onto a chair, slipped off her shoes, and went straight to her laptop. The Google search bar hadn't felt this tense in a long time. Julian Cross, Consultant, New York. Hundreds of results, none of them her Julian. Julian Cross, Central Park. Nothing. A few running clubs, some random event photos, but no Julian. Julian Cross, Manhattan apartment. Still nothing. Julian Cross, freelance strategy consultant. 0. She scrolled through pages of search results, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. Not a single profile that even remotely resembled him. No tagged photos, no interviews, no background info. It was as if Julian Cross had never existed online. In the 2020s, that was nearly impossible. You were either off the grid by choice or erased by strategy. Mia exhaled sharply. She opened her phone and called the one person she trusted for brutal honesty. Rosa. The video connected within seconds. It's the middle of the night. Did someone die or are you just dating an FBI agent? Rosa said, squinting into the camera. Mia shook her head. No pleasantries. She got straight to it. Rosa, I can't find anything about Julian. You Googled him? Everything. His name, the building, his job title, nothing. No socials, no school, no old articles, nothing. It's like he's a ghost. Rosa paused, eyes widening slightly. Well, maybe he is a ghost. Don't start with the conspiracy crap. I'm serious, Mia. Think about it. The guy invites you to a Manhattan penthouse. His life is pristine. He acts like a damn intelligence officer, and he leaves no digital footprint. That's not normal. That's exactly what I'm saying, Mia snapped. But the worst part is, I feel safe with him, I trust him, and I don't even know who he is. Rosa leaned closer to the screen. Mia, what if he's more than we think? Mia went silent. I mean, Rosa continued, maybe he's not just rich. Maybe he's connected. Maybe he has a past. Or, think simpler. What if Julian Cross isn't even his real name? That thought sent a shiver down Mia's spine. Julian's notebook was still in her bag. She hadn't opened it yet, almost as if doing so would make all of this real. If you ask me, Rosa said, you either investigate now or regret it later. After the call ended, Mia didn't move for a long time. She leaned her head back against the couch and thought about Julian's voice. The word he gave her, hazelnut. If he were dangerous, why would he put so much effort into making her feel protected? But what if that was the strategy? What if Julian wasn't just a threat? He was the kind that knew exactly how to blend in. As the night dragged on, sleep never came. Mia made a decision. She reached into her bag and pulled out the notebook. The cover was soft, worn around the edges. She opened to the first page, and what she found pulled her even deeper into the mystery. Paris, 2018. No face should be that quiet. Report received. Operation halted. But why the regret? Taking a step is harder than following one. The pages were filled with fragmented thoughts, part poetry, part field notes, part whispered memories from another life. It didn't read like a spy journal, but it certainly wasn't the notebook of a typical strategy consultant. Mia closed the notebook gently. Julian was still a mystery, but now the voice inside her wasn't a whisper. It was a clear, resounding warning. This man is real, but he's not from your world. The next morning, Mia stared at herself in the mirror, and the dark circles under her eyes told the whole story. But the real exhaustion wasn't physical, it was mental. The notebook Julian had given her still sat on her nightstand, and its fragmented lines had echoed in her mind all night, each sentence planting a new seed of suspicion. With a coffee in hand, she took a slow walk through the park when a message popped up on her phone. Rosa, caffeine emergency, gossip level, orange. Mia replied simply, on my way. An hour later, they sat across from each other in the same cafe they'd met at dozens of times. Rosa was, as always, rapid in speech and razor-sharp in thought. Mia, listen. I'm just going to say it. Julian is weird. Gorgeous? Yes. Mesmerizing. Totally. But also, scarily calculated. Mia rolled her eyes. Rosa, no, hear me out. The man has no social media. Zero search results. He lives in a luxury high-rise in Manhattan and claims he just consults for a living. And he still told you almost nothing about his life. Mia stirred her coffee in silence. Rosa leaned in. What if he's some rich sociopath? What if the reason he seems so in control is because he is? Because he's used to manipulating people? Finally, Mia looked up. Number Julian's not like that. How do you know that? Rosa's voice softened. You want to trust him because he makes you feel good. Because for the first time, someone sees you. Really sees you. But Mia, there's a difference between seeing someone and managing them. That last line sank deep into Mia's chest. Because it wasn't wrong. Her time with Julian had been beautiful, yes, but also one-sided. He dictated the pace, the closeness, the depth, always on his terms. He's kind to me, Mia whispered, and I feel like he's being honest when we're together. Feel like, Rosa repeated gently. That phrase says a lot. Mia looked down at her cup. She couldn't deny it anymore. She had grown attached to him. Around Julian, she felt safer, stronger, more herself, but she'd grown that attachment without ever truly knowing who he was. Look, Rosa said, placing a hand over Mia's. I want you to be happy, but everything about this guy is too smooth, too polished, and that's unsettling. Real people aren't like that. Mia nodded slowly. Rosa was probably right, but the feeling Julian gave her couldn't be denied either. When they were together, time slowed. The chaos of the world faded. There was something controlled in Julian's calm, but it was a calm that felt like shelter. You're getting attached. I can tell, Rosa added more gently now. But real connection? That comes from knowing someone, not just feeling seen, but choosing to see back. At that moment, Mia felt deeply alone, because she was emotionally invested in Julian. And if Rosa was right, if it was all just an illusion, then her heart had signed on to a lie. But her heart didn't care. Julian's soft voice, his thoughtful messages, the way he instinctively moved closer when they walked side by side, all of it felt real. Or at least, real enough. That night, as Mia sat alone in her apartment, Rosa's words echoed again and again. What if he's just a rich psychopath? Real people aren't like this. And then her phone lit up. Julian. Wind's strong today, but the good news is no umbrella needed. You're here, and that's more than enough. Mia stared at the screen, smiling without meaning to. Her finger hovered above the reply button. Her heart was drifting toward Julian, not Rosa. And that was the most dangerous part of all. Choosing someone before you've even figured out who they truly are. The morning in New Jersey started just like any other. Mia rushed into the back entrance of the grocery store, coffee in hand, just barely avoiding being late again. But before she even reached the staff room, she felt something off, a buzz in the air. People were whispering, staring at their phones, moving between aisles with unusual urgency. Her coworker Jenny came running over, wide-eyed. Mia, did you hear? Mia blinked. What happened? The store's been sold, the whole chain. New owners, some investment firm called Everlight Holdings. A strange chill ran through Mia. Everlight? Jenny nodded eagerly. Yeah, and they just announced the CEO. Guess who? Who? Jenny held up her phone, screen glowing with a local business headline. The headline was unmistakable. Everlight Holdings acquires Maple Chain Supermarkets. CEO Julian Cross confirms expansion plan. Mia's heart stopped. There under the bold letters was a photo of Julian, dressed in a navy suit, looking composed, charismatic, powerful. Her Julian, a CEO. The phone nearly slipped from her hands. She stared at the article, rereading the words over and over again. Julian Cross, rising figure in global investments, background in strategic consulting, anonymous acquisitions through silent partnerships. The room faded. Jenny was still talking, but Mia couldn't hear anything beyond the echo in her head. Julian Cross was the CEO, and not just any CEO. He now owned the company she worked for. She tried to make it through her shift, but every keystroke at the register felt like it vibrated through her bones. Every forced smile, every beep of a barcode echoed one question. Did he know me from the start? During her break, she slipped into the back room and texted Rosa. Mia, you were right. He's a CEO. He owns the grocery chain now. Rosa. What? Mia. It was announced this morning, Julian Cross, Chief Executive Officer of Everlight Holdings. Rosa. Mia. Did he get close to you because of that? Was this all part of it? Mia didn't respond, because that was exactly the storm swirling in her head. Had the acquisition already been in motion before Julian ever met her? Was their relationship really just a coincidence, or had it been a calculated move? That evening, Mia texted Julian, Mia, we need to talk. She didn't wait for a reply. She grabbed the subway straight to his apartment. The building's security nodded as if they already knew her. This time, she took the stairs. The elevator was too slow, but her questions were too fast. When the door opened, Julian didn't look surprised, as if he'd been waiting for her. You knew, Mia said immediately, about the store, about being the CEO. You knew I worked there. Julian stepped aside, wordlessly inviting her in. She entered but didn't sit. Yes, he said, holding her gaze. Her chest tightened. Why didn't you tell me? Because at first it was just another acquisition, one of many chains. But then, I saw you. At the store? He nodded. You were at Register 4. Can you believe that? Mia stepped back. Every moment, every meeting, every walk in Central Park, every whisper of hazelnut had started when she was already under his watch. When you messaged me on that fake boyfriend site, did you already know who I was? Julian's face finally showed hesitation. That post was separate, but when I saw it was you, I couldn't believe it. I responded, because approaching you any other way didn't feel right. Mia stared. So you couldn't find another way in? So you rented yourself to me? Julian didn't speak. I thought you were real, she said, her voice cracking. But it was all part of a plan. Julian stepped forward, but Mia pulled back. I didn't deceive you, he said quietly. But I waited, because I didn't want to show up as a CEO. I wanted to show up as me, not Julian Cross, just Julian. Mia couldn't stay any longer. She turned toward the door, and behind her, Julian said only one thing. The store may belong to me now, yes, but you were never something to own, and I've always known that. As the door shut behind her, tears streamed down Mia's cheeks. She didn't know what hurt more, that he had lied, or that despite everything, she still missed him. Because the real pain wasn't betrayal. The real pain was this. Julian hadn't entered her life like a stranger. He had always been there. She just realized it too late. As the sun rose the next morning, Mia still felt like she was trapped in a dream. But it wasn't a sweet dream. It echoed with bitterness. Finding out Julian was a CEO made her question everything. Every step, every feeling, now under suspicion. She didn't go to work. She silenced her phone. She skipped breakfast. She just thought. And eventually, when the weight became unbearable, she made a decision. This time, she wouldn't play by his rules. She went to Julian's apartment without warning. When he opened the door, he didn't look surprised. There was no shock in his eyes, just a quiet acceptance. Mia stormed in without saying a word. She shut the door hard behind her and turned to face him. Did you follow me? Julian remained silent. Did you approach me on purpose? She demanded, her voice rising. You saw me at the register, then answered that fake boyfriend ad? His eyes didn't leave hers, but still not a single word. Say something, please, Mia's voice cracked. Lie to me if you have to, but say something. Julian took a deep breath, never breaking eye contact. I'm not sure if the truth will bring you peace or just hurt you more. Don't I get to choose that? She snapped. You walked into my life, made yourself feel real, and now I'm not even sure your name is real. Julian took a step forward, but Mia stepped back. You watched me, she whispered. I trusted you. I gave you my heart. But you were always above me, weren't you? You were observing. Julian bowed his head. When I saw you at the register, I recognized you. I'd seen your name in the acquisition reports, employee notes, internal feedback. But seeing you, like that, in real life, it wasn't just business anymore. Something pulled me in, and maybe that's why I reached out. Mia's eyes filled with tears. So yes, you were watching me. Julian didn't deny it. She inhaled deeply, dropping her gaze to the floor. I wish you had just been my fake boyfriend, she said quietly. I wish you were just Julian. But you were always Julian Cross, and I never saw it. Julian reached into his pocket and took out a small envelope. He offered it to her. This contains everything I wanted to tell you, but couldn't. Mia didn't take it. You're still hiding, she said through tears. Still giving me words instead of answers. Why can't you just say what you feel? Why can't you be brave? Julian answered softly. Because I care about you, and I'm afraid. I'm afraid the truth will push you away. I'm afraid of losing you. Mia wiped her face. She turned toward the door. Truth doesn't break people, Julian. Incomplete truth does. That's what kills things. She opened the door, but before leaving, she looked back. Julian was still standing there, frozen in place. But his eyes were different now. The mystery was gone. In its place, guilt, regret, a silent confession. And as Mia stepped out, she knew one thing for certain. Julian's past might still be a secret, but the moment he realized he had lost her, that was no longer one. From that moment on, time bent around Mia like a warped lens. Days passed, but the memories didn't. The way Julian had looked at her in that final moment, it etched itself into her mind, like a permanent echo of everything left unsaid. Silence had become the loudest scream. The next morning, Mia put her phone on airplane mode. She didn't go to work. She didn't text Rosa. She buried her head in her pillow, hoping to shut out the world and the sound of her heart. But hearts don't go silent, especially not when they're broken. If anything, they scream louder. On the first day, Julian sent a message. Julian, I just want to listen to you. Just give me a chance. Mia saw it. She didn't respond. On the second day, another message came. Julian, I never meant to hurt you. None of this was planned. The more I got to know you, the more everything else stopped making sense. She read it, still no reply. On the third day, Julian called 6 times. Mia didn't answer. He left voicemails. She didn't listen. For an entire week, she didn't leave her apartment. When her manager from the supermarket called, asking what was going on, she simply said, I just need some time. Julian stopped messaging. Maybe he was respecting her silence. Or maybe he had finally given up. One night, Mia opened her photo gallery. A few photos of them together, walking in Central Park, smiling at a cafe. But the one that gripped her the most was different. Julian looking at her while she looked into the camera. There was something in that gaze, a kind of tenderness, a kind of ache. Love maybe, but a love haunted by its own past. It looked real, just incomplete. That night, Rosa showed up at her door. Her expression was a mix of concern and stubborn resolve. I can't watch you spiral like this, she said. Yes, he hurt you, but you never let him tell you why he loved you. Maybe you deserve to hear that. Mia looked away. Maybe I'm just not ready to hear it. No, Rosa said firmly. You're not afraid of the answer. You're afraid that the answer might mean you still love him. That night, Mia stepped outside alone. For the first time in months, she truly felt the air on her skin, the wind brushing against her like a whisper of freedom, or maybe clarity. She replayed every moment with Julian, the first glance, the ridiculous fake boyfriend deal, the way their roles blurred, when acting started to feel real. And then she remembered his eyes, that final look, quiet but speaking volumes, heavy with regret, soft with truth. That night, Mia made a decision. Even if she never responded, even if nothing came of it, she couldn't lie to her heart any longer, because the worst kind of lie was pretending you didn't love someone when you absolutely did. And Mia, she couldn't live another day with that lie. That morning, the supermarket was its usual chaos. Carts clattering against metal rails, checkout lines stretching and shrinking, announcements buzzing in and out of ears. But inside Mia, another noise drowned them all out. It was the first time in days she'd returned to work. She was trying to pull herself together, trying to restore order in a world that had cracked open. But right in the center of her chest, there was still an empty chair. Julian's messages had stopped. The calls had ceased. That silence. Maybe it was closure. Mia tried to focus on the screen in front of her, on the barcodes and prices, but her eyes kept drifting to the front door. And every time she didn't see him there, it was both a relief and a quiet ache. Then just before lunch, the automatic doors chimed, and with the wind, he entered. Julian Cross, navy suit, pale blue shirt, a sleek, expensive watch. But today, something was different. Gone was the air of detached perfection. In its place, a man with clarity in his eyes and conviction on his face. He walked straight toward her. All eyes turned. Employees whispered. Customers stared. After all, this was the man who owned the company now. But Julian? He only saw one person in the room. Mia's heartbeat roared. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard, frozen. Julian stopped right in front of her register. Mia, he said clearly, loud enough for everyone to hear. I need to talk to you. Mia tilted her head. Here? He nodded. Yes, right here, in front of everyone. The cashier beside her paused. A customer stopped mid-payment. Julian took a breath and looked straight into her eyes. Yes, I own this supermarket. Yes, this company is mine. But you were never just an employee to me. You were the one who showed me what was real. The store went quiet. I lost my heart a long time ago, he said. My life was all charts and numbers, acquisitions, strategies. Then one day, I saw you, behind the register, hair tied up, eyes holding a whole other world. I didn't know what hit me that day, but now I do. Mia tried to look away, but Julian kept going. I should have told you the truth sooner. You were real with me, and I wasn't real with you. I left you alone in doubt when I should have made you feel safe. He stepped closer. So here I am, saying this out loud in front of everyone. If I have to sell this company, if I have to walk away from my name, I will. But I will not walk away from you. His voice trembled, just a little, then stronger. I don't need to be a CEO to be with you. I don't need a role, a title, or a strategy. All I want is to love you as you are. And if you'll give me the chance to be known, really known, there will be no more lies, no more secrets, just me. The store nearly erupted in applause, but they waited. Everyone turned to Mia. Her heart pounded. This was something out of a movie, a rom-com climax in aisle 4. But it wasn't fiction. It was him. After everything, the hurt, the silence, the questions, he was here, laying it all on the line. And for the first time in a long time, Mia smiled, a quiet, knowing smile. You're hard to figure out, she said, but maybe that's exactly why I couldn't let go. Julian's eyes lit up. Mia nodded slowly. No more pretending, no more surprises. If this is real, I'm in. The store broke into soft applause. From afar, Rosa winked. Jenny wiped a tear and whispered, "This is straight out of a movie." Julian reached for Mia's hand. She took it without hesitation. And in that moment, Mia knew. Love, real love, doesn't always arrive neatly packaged. Sometimes it comes through chaos, questions, and collapse. But when it's real, it finds its way. Julian's bold confession at the supermarket had shifted everything. Something inside Mia had cracked open, but not in a romantic, dreamy way. It was the slow unraveling of a distrust that had weighed heavy for far too long. They didn't speak for a week. No messages, no calls. As if that public moment had sent them both inward, each of them sitting quietly with their own truths, letting feelings settle like dust in sunlight. Then one morning, Mia opened her mailbox and found a small envelope. No return address, just one letter, handwritten on the front. M. Her hands trembled as she opened it upstairs. Inside were 3 folded letters, each one in Julian's handwriting, dated differently, written with different pens, like time itself had separated the thoughts. Letter 1, the first day, December 24th. The day I first saw you at the register. Time slowed for a second when I saw you, a chocolate bar in one hand, a cardboard coffee cup in the other. Your brow was furrowed. A rough day, maybe. But in that moment, I realized I was looking at someone outside of business for the first time. I didn't know you then, but I wanted to. That's why I waited. That's why I responded to your ad. Not to trick you, but because it was the only door I could walk through without forcing one open. Was it a lie? Maybe. But the part of me that wanted to get close to you, that part was honest. Letter 2, Hazelnut, January 4th. The night I gave you the safety word, hazelnut. Maybe to you it's just a word, but for me, it meant something else. A man only gives a code like that to someone he truly wants to protect. That night, while we were pretending, I looked into your eyes, and the pretending stopped. For a moment, there was no script, no play, just us, just truth. I'm a man who likes control, but with you, everything I tried to manage slipped through my fingers, and that was the most beautiful kind of loss. Letter 3, after you left, January 17th. The night you slammed the door, I told you that the truth might push you away. I was wrong. It wasn't the truth that drove you away. It was the silence. When you closed that door, something inside me shut down too. I thought I lost you. But then I realized love is being willing to lose something just to do the right thing. Loving you was easy. Saying it, that took courage. I never sent these letters before because I was afraid of how deeply I meant every word. But today I face that fear. Because you, Mia, you are the truth behind every line. Mia read the letters again and again. Each line felt like it had been written in the margin of her own doubts. Tears welled up, tracing the edge of her jaw. These weren't just words, they were proof. Proof that Julian wasn't perfect, but he was real. That his mystery had never been about deceit, but about protection. That his silence wasn't emptiness, but fear. And that the very thing that had made him feel unreachable was what made him vulnerable. This love, it wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't a game. It wasn't a saint. It was this, something too big for a single conversation, but real enough to fit inside 3 unsent letters. Spring had painted Central Park in brighter greens, birds chirped from the highest branches, kids laughed along the paths, and the breeze felt soft, like a quiet promise. For Mia, the air inside her was only just beginning to clear. The letters from Julian had stayed on her nightstand for days. She had read them over and over until the words were etched into her memory. But one line echoed the loudest. You are more real than anything I could ever write. That morning, a short, simple text arrived. Come to the bench in the park. The place where we first met. Mia didn't hesitate. She left home without armor. No pretense, no need to protect herself anymore. There were still cracks inside her, but she no longer hid them. Cracks weren't just reminders of the past. They were signs of healing too. Julian was already there, sitting on the same bench, in the same position, elbows on knees, hands clasped. The wind moved gently through his hair as he looked up. No tension, no expectation. Just the quiet kind of joy that comes from seeing someone you've missed. Mia paused before walking closer. The scene mirrored a memory burned into her mind. But this time the roles had shifted. She wasn't the one being observed anymore. She was the one choosing to approach. She sat beside him. For a while, neither of them spoke. The background sounds of footsteps, bikes, and distant music faded into something soft and cinematic. Around them, time seemed to slow. Julian finally broke the silence. Thank you for coming, Mia nodded. I needed to. If you want to talk, he said, I'll listen. No judgment, no interruptions, just me being here. She took a deep breath. The words had been waiting on the tip of her tongue for days, but now it wasn't pain that held her back. It was the desire to get them right. The first day I saw you here, she began, everything was fake. You were my pretend boyfriend, a one-night confidence boost for $100. Julian smiled softly, his gaze downcast. But then, her voice wavered. I realized something. I hired you for $100, and somewhere along the way, you gave me your heart. Julian looked up. His eyes were glassy. And she continued, I didn't trust it. I didn't think I could carry something that real. I thought someone like you, so composed, so flawless, would never want someone like me with all my mess. Julian turned his palms upward, silently offering them. Mia placed her hands in his without hesitation. With you, I could be myself, she said. Flawed, scared, messy, but real. And you showed up with your own truth. When the world expected you to be perfect, you gave me your imperfections. Julian whispered, because you saw them as whole. They both sat quietly. Then Mia pulled something from her bag, a folded paper. One of the fake boyfriend cue cards Julian had brought to their first meeting, but on the back in her handwriting was a new message. Love doesn't start with contracts, but sometimes the best stories do. Julian took the paper, read it, folded it again. Before tucking it into his pocket, he looked at her. I don't want anything fake anymore, he said. Not the roles, not the masks, not the polished version of myself. When I'm with you, I want to be just a man, not a CEO, not a strategist, just me, with my past, my flaws, my heart, Mia nodded. That's why I'm here, because I want to love you, not for convenience, not for appearances, just for who you are. Julian leaned in. So did Mia. And when their lips finally met, there was no script, no performance, no control, only surrender. And somewhere behind them, unnoticed by passers-by, a simple bench in Central Park bore witness to the quietest kind of miracle. A fake relationship, born out of pride, transformed, letter by letter, word by word, into something real. And on that spring day, the man once hired to play a part became a permanent piece in the story of her life. Exactly 1 year later, the bench in Central Park was no longer just the place where two strangers met. It had become the quiet monument to where their new life had begun. Mia's world had transformed. The days of scanning groceries at a supermarket were now distant memories, folded away into her past. In their place stood early mornings in a glass-walled Manhattan office, where she woke up each day as someone new. CEO Mia Larson. Just a few feet away, separated by nothing but transparent glass, Julian worked from his own office. Strategist, advisor, partner. Their connection no longer relied on titles or games. It was grounded in trust, built on truth, and growing stronger by the day. Their company's name was both ironic and meaningful: Hazelnut Capital. In the corporate world, a name is branding, but to them, it was a code, a private symbol of a past built on secrets and a future that needed none. Julian handled strategy, networking, and investor relations with the precision of experience. But nothing moved forward without Mia's say. The heart of the company beat from her office. Their first major initiative was a fund to support small businesses. For Mia, it was personal. She hadn't forgotten what it felt like to be underestimated, treated like a background extra in her own life. This fund didn't just offer capital, it offered respect, opportunity, a hand up, not a handout. They were still opposites in many ways. Mia made bold decisions, led by instinct. Julian calculated every angle. Mia was fire, Julian, ice. But together, they didn't cancel each other out. They stabilized each other. Their differences didn't stall growth. They made it sustainable. And the love? It no longer needed definition. It lived in the little things. A coffee left quietly on a desk, a glance through the glass during long meetings, a sticky note slipped under a laptop midday. One of Mia's notes read, "Being a CEO is easy, but having my heart stolen by my own advisor? Still weird." Julian's reply came the next morning in an envelope on her desk. Inside was just one sentence: "The best investments always begin with emotional capital." In the office lobby hung a simple but striking framed receipt. Date, amount, description. Fake boyfriend, $100. Status, paid in love. Underneath, in smaller script, "The best investments are unplanned." It was their inside joke, their quiet reminder, a marker of where they had come from and why they kept going. Each morning, as they passed by it, Mia smiled, and Julian remembered exactly why he had chosen this path. In just 1 year, they had built more than a company. They had built trust, healing, a future. No more fake dates, no more carefully scripted roles. Now they made decisions together, took risks together, won together. But perhaps most beautifully of all, they were still choosing each other every single day. In the CEO office at Hazelnut Capital's headquarters, there were no expensive paintings, no flashy awards or certificates on the walls. Just one frame. Inside it, an old, slightly wrinkled supermarket receipt, faded yellow with time, sat proudly behind glass. Fake boyfriend, $100. Status, paid in love. Scrawled beneath it in silver ink was a simple note: "The best investments are unplanned." It was the receipt from Julian's first transaction with Mia, the payment for pretending to be her boyfriend. Back then, it seemed like nothing more than the setup for a silly charade. But now it was a symbol, a signature of fate. That day marked exactly 1 year since everything had begun. Their company had grown. Their lives had found rhythm. But neither of them had forgotten a single moment. Not the bench in Central Park, not the glance across the supermarket party, not even the word hazelnut. When Mia arrived at her desk that morning, she found a small box waiting for her. Inside it, something from the past, the pink hair clips she wore the day they first met. On the lid, a handwritten message: "You thought you lived a small life, but to me, you gave an entire world." Mia held the box and walked toward Julian's office. Through the glass, she saw him reviewing papers at his desk. As if he sensed her, he looked up and smiled. She walked in and placed the box on his desk. "Another nostalgia bomb?" she asked with a smirk. Julian tilted his head. "Not quite. Just wanted to remember where we started." Mia glanced at the framed receipt on the wall. "You know, hanging that thing up is still kind of insane, right?" Julian shrugged. "It's the only bill I've ever paid that went straight to my heart." Later, during a small anniversary celebration with the team, cake was cut and laughter filled the office. But the real moment came when Mia gave a short speech to close out the event. "Sometimes," she said, "life gives you the most ridiculous offers, like a fake boyfriend for $100. But if you look closely, hidden inside that nonsense might be the seed of something real. The only reason we're all here today is because we gave our hearts a chance to meet by accident. And that's why the best investments are unplanned." Applause followed. A few eyes teared up. But Julian wasn't hearing any of it. His attention was only on Mia. And in her eyes, he still saw what he saw that very first day. A storm, a calm, a home, but no more fear.